Today we're going to be discussing the art of the interview. Just a brief intro about me. I've actually known Dinesh and Saji for a while. We're actually neighbors right across the street from each other. And I've been somewhat involved in terms of like last year's robotics contest we had at my previous company, Capital One, sponsored that event as well. So I'm very much appreciative of all the great work that the Robotics for Youth organization does. My level of involvement is just to help you guys with all the stuff that has to do with the soft skills development. That's my area of expertise. I've been in technical recruiting for the last 20 plus years. I'm currently at AWS. Prior to that, I was at Capital One. And before that, I ran my own agency and recruiting firm. So interview tips, personal branding, digital media profiles, terms of all the different things that you need to really build your brand, because that's the key today. You can have all the skill sets that you want in terms of technical skill sets or what we call like hard skill sets. But at the end of the day, if you want to rise quickly, you want to be successful, you want to land the job of your dream or whatever, it's going to require some of that soft skills development. And that's the area where I'm going to be focusing on. So today we'll do the art of the interview. We have some other exciting things coming up. Like we want to do some things on mock interviews. We want to do some things on speaking skills. We want to do things on communication and other things that will help build the brand of everyone here, hopefully. And you can take these skill sets and it hopefully land you your job. If you're looking for a summer job, if you're looking for an internship, whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish, hopefully we can do that. So with that being said, I'll get started. So again, my name is Murshed Chowdhury and I'm going to be doing the art of the interview today. This is just the beginning of a series of different things that we're going to be focusing on for personal and branding and development. So the first things first. All right. So why interviewing is important? Because of the following reasons. You have your job or career that you're going to be focusing on. For many people here, it might be internships. For a number of you are in college and you might be interested in going on to an internship, and how do you land that internship? Maybe it's a summer job or a part-time work that you're looking for while you're in school, or could be the college admission process. So a lot of you folks will be going on from high school to college, and some of these college will require you to make sure that you interview before you get into them. So those are the key things on what we're going to be focused on, why we interview. So interview preparation, the most important thing in any interview is to prepare for the interview. And the best way to do the interview preparation starts with everything like anything else. It starts with research. So if you're going to interview for an organization, whether it's a college, a company, I don't know if even if you're going to do something at a summer job, an internship, what interviewers are looking for is to see that you've done some effective research. And how do you do research? Well, first things first is you want to make sure that you research the company or the organization that you're about to join. So you want to get real information, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're in the interview and they ask, so what do you know about our organization? And then you don't have a good comeback or an answer. So research is key. Know about the company, know exactly their history. Almost every major company has a wiki page or website. There's information on Google, all different information that gives you a really robust understanding of what the company does, right? The second thing is nowadays for, I guess more for like if you go for a college admission or for an actual job, you'll actually know who the person's interviewing. That might not be the case for a summer job. It may be the case for an internship, but if you can know who the person is, you can also research that with today's tools and social media, through LinkedIn, through Google. You can literally find out who the person is and what information you want to get from them. So that's key. And you want to know as much as you about the person. I've been in situations that I've seen over the years, just because someone looked someone up and they had a common person that they knew, that changed the entire dynamic of the interview. So if you can go in there and say, hey, I noticed that, some point you can say, I noticed that we share a mutual connection, or such and such, that can literally change the entire pretext interview. All of a sudden a relationship is built. They feel more comfortable. You come with the name of someone that you know, and it changes the dynamic. So try to see if there's any way that you can research the person or see if there's a connection point. You want to research the role or the job. Usually they have a job description. You want to make sure you read about it so you understand what it is that you're applying for, what type of role that you're going in for, what it is that you're going to be doing. And they can ask you. So, this comes up. So what do you understand about the job? Or what do you understand about this college? Or what do you understand about this role? And you want to make sure that you're not the person saying, I don't know, but you've done some research. This is what it says. But of course, you'd like to hear more. And if you're going for any type of role that's related to technology, as many of you guys are or girls into technology, then you want to make sure you know which technologies. I in my career working with a lot of folks, the last thing you want to do is send someone or have apply to someone for a technology that you don't know or you're not interested in. So make sure it's the technology you're interested in. Make sure it's the technology that you know, and that's the one that you're applying for and looking to get an internship for or a job for. So if you're a mobile developer and that's what you're going to be interested in internship, you want to make sure that that's what you're applying for, not something that's out of your interest zone. So what are the tools to help you do those research? Number one thing, you got to go to the company's website. It doesn't matter if you're getting a summer job at TJ Maxx or if you're doing an internship at a Capital One or an Amazon or Microsoft, or whether you go into a particular university or college. You want to make sure you go to their website, get a feel for what the company or the organization is all about. They usually have history. They usually have who the key organizers are, who the leadership is. You want to know that information. On top of that, Google is the number one tool for research. So as you all know, so you can get all the information you need from there. And then LinkedIn. Now, one of the future lessons we're going to do is actually build a LinkedIn profile in real time. Because if you're in high school and you're going on to college, or if you're in college, LinkedIn is the number one social professional platform, right? There's about 600 to 700 million people. There's about there's a person added every 2 seconds. So if you're going to do anything in the career world, which most of you are, you want to make sure you have a LinkedIn profile, and it should start in high school. So you can get that going, and by college, you should start building that LinkedIn profile. So when you start entering the workforce, you can make those connections. And one of the, like I said, subsequent classes that we'll do is we'll create a LinkedIn profile and show people how to build a LinkedIn profile. And then of course, how to use LinkedIn to make those necessary connections. And of course, there's always Twitter. A lot of companies will use Twitter, or a lot of people will be on Twitter talking about the organization. You can get some really good information that way. So I'll go through the slides as we go through this, and then at the end, I'm going to leave some time open for Q&A. So I really hope that folks have some questions. So just write your questions, jot your questions down, hold them to the end. Let me get through the presentation, and then I'm happy to take all the questions from everyone at the end. Next thing is personal preparation. And this is like simple stuff, but it matters a lot. If you have an interview the next day, no matter what time it is, make sure you get enough rest and sleep. The last thing you want to do is go into interview early in the morning and you look really tired and you look exhausted. Your mental clarity is not at 100%. Sleep well, eat well. I know this sounds like pretty self-evident, but again, doing this for more than 20 years and having more than 10,000 plus people go through the interview process, I've seen so many stories of people who just didn't prep well on these things. And so you want to make sure that's there. Then going to dress well. Now, in today's virtual world, you might be doing an interview live, or you might be doing it over webcam or whatnot. You still want to make sure you dress the part. So professional dress is like you want to wear something that's conservative, that's dark, a shirt preferably, something that comes off as more professional. You don't want to wear like a hoodie. You don't want to wear like a t-shirt and things of that nature. You want to make sure that it's something professional, whether you're on the Zoom cam or whether you're doing it live. If it's one of those kind of organizations where, like, if you're doing a live interview at a big company, then for men it's usually about like slacks and a dress shirt. For women, it's like a business dress, or again something that's casual wear, or business casual nowadays is fine. But you want to make sure you dress well, because people will judge you based on that. I think it sounds pretty funny, but people say comb your hair. I've seen candidates come in front of me at companies and just they look like they're disheveled, like they just woke up, came out of like straight out of their bed. You want to make sure you comb your hair, make sure that you smell fresh. It would sound funny. We've had candidates come for interviews who are smokers and they smell terrible, and that has cost them the interview. So hopefully nobody's a smoker, but either which way, if you don't believe in deodorant, make sure you use it. If you don't believe in cologne or perfume, make sure you use it. Trust me, that stuff is important. So you want to make sure that you come smelling fresh and clean. Sounds pretty self-evident, but like I said, I've been across many of the candidates and situations where the person didn't do this properly. Now, in the virtual place, when you're doing in today's COVID world, what's important is make sure when you're doing these Zoom sessions or web interviews, you want to make sure that you pick a quiet place where there's less distractions as possible. Because right now, with all the stuff going on, people have pets, there's animals, this and that, noise, people screaming in the background. You want to make sure it's a quiet place. If it's an office, if it's a room, close the door. Let folks know that you need some quiet time in the next 30 minutes or half an hour or an hour for whatever the interview is. But you want to make sure you're focused and not distracted. You want to make sure that your images are clear if you're doing a live session with someone. You want to make sure that they can see you and you can see them. So make sure your internet connection is there. And then also make sure your background is clear. We've done interviews with people on the Zoom and their background had some stuff on the wall that may not have been appropriate or in the background. You want to make sure that your background is clear so that when people are seeing you, you want to make sure that it's a clear background that they're seeing in the back. If you're taking these interviews over the phone. Now, usually the steps of the interview process is they usually do a phone screen and then they'll do a live Zoom session, or if they invite you in for an interview, what we call an onsite. So on the phone, it's the same thing. You want to make sure it's a quiet place where they can hear you and you can hear them. Make sure your phone is charged. I don't know how many times this has happened where I've talked to a candidate and all of a sudden the call dropped because their phone wasn't charged. And so it's not the end of the world, but it doesn't look really good. So you want to make sure that your phone is charged and making sure that you can hear the person. And of course, shut off all notifications. The last thing you want to be is on a phone interview and there's constant distraction of texts coming in or emails or dings on your phone. So you want to make sure you shut off all notifications so you can hear the person and then answer accordingly. Now it's showtime. Let's say you're going to the interview. One of the most important things, and I will tell everyone, is make sure you're on time for any interview. And what I mean by on time is 15 minutes earlier than the time you're supposed to be there. A lot of times, if you go to an on-site interview, they might have you fill out an application, just like when you go to the doctor's office. So if you have to fill any forms out and you get there right at the time of the interview, then you're already going to be delayed more time doing that. So my strong opinion is try to get there 15 minutes. If not, try to get there even half an hour early, be outside the building, walk around. You can be half an hour early, you can be super early. You can't be 1 minute late. Lateness it just shows the person is not serious. So you want to make sure that you're on time. If it's somewhere that is far from your house or you need to drive to, I would strongly suggest you have your family member or somebody at least show you how to get there or drive you there and know where it is. If it's somewhere you haven't been, I would make sure you do a dry run the day before or 2 days before to make sure that that day you're not running into some issues for being late, and check traffic as well. Because this DMV area, if you have a live interview and it's a traffic situation, again, you're expected to know that stuff and be on time. So make sure you check all of those things. The greeting, you want to make sure that your greeting is warm and friendly and smiling all the time. So the greeting has to be something like, hey, it's nice to meet you. Thanks for having me here. Something, again, they're going to be looking to see how you communicate. So whether you're in high school or whether you're in college, whether you're going to a college admissions interview, an internship, they want to see what your mannerisms are, right? So you don't want to be the person looking in the floor and being grumpy and, not have anything, just hi. You want to say something like, hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for having me here. Something along the lines so you have a really good, firm greeting. Now, smile. It is said in psychology that 70% of communication sometimes is done facially. So smiling is a huge tool. Literally, I've been at events or situations where two people will look at each other, one person smiles, and all of a sudden it's an icebreaker. Smiling is key, especially at an interview. You want to make sure that you're there because you want to be there and doesn't come off as like, grumpy or moody or just like you're so down. Smiling actually brings people energy. And so this is a lot of case studies done. Interviewers will look for these kind of things. Whenever I'm interviewing someone, if they look miserable or they look like they don't want to be there, I don't really feel comfortable wanting them to be here either. So I'm looking for that level of engagement. Eye contact is key. The reason eye contact is so important is that it is a symbol of confidence. If you can make eye contact with whether it's on the Zoom or whether it's a live session, you want to make sure that you're making really clear eye contact with that person. So if you're always looking at the floor or you're, twiddling your thumbs or moving or not looking them in the eye and just moving left and right, it shows that there's some reason that you don't feel confident. You're not someone who is confident about themselves or what they're about to say. So make eye contact with the person. Make sure that when you're answering the question, you look them right in the eye and give them the clear answers that you're looking at. And there's this important thing next is being confident and not arrogant. So there's a fine line between the two. We love candidates that are confident, but we do not like candidates that are arrogant. So what's the difference? The difference being is confident people are the folks that are like, hey, this is the things that I've accomplished. I work with the team. I'm always looking to learn. I'm always curious. I'm someone who, if I be honest about making mistakes, things of that nature. The arrogant person is, I'm the greatest. I'm the best. I did everything by myself. It's not about teamwork. I don't make any mistakes. There's a difference. So you want to make sure that when you're speaking, you're coming off as confident that these are the things that I've accomplished. These are the things I'm looking to accomplish. This is how I learn. But I've done it with teams. I've done it with others as well in terms of learning and what the things that I've accomplished. And that gives a little bit of a more clear picture of someone who is confident versus someone who's arrogant. I know at AWS and at Capital One, we'd have people come in who were awesome. They were just great technically, really smart, but they came off as arrogant and they were not hired. So at the end of the day, this one really matters, because at the end of the day, who wants to work with someone who thinks they're better than anyone else? We love confidence. We don't like arrogance. And then listening attentively. So, there's a statement out there that says you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So try to communicate in that ratio. So listen twice as much as you speak. So in an interview, you want to listen very attentively to what the questions are being asked or what they're explaining. If they're describing the job, if they're describing the admissions process at a university, if they're explaining the internship, if they're asking you questions, you want to be able to listen really attentively and understand what it is that they're asking, and then give them a really good answer. But if you're not listening carefully or your mind is distracted, you're not going to be able to hear the full question. And you can always say to them, sorry, I didn't understand. Can you repeat that? That's okay. But if you're doing that over and over and over, then it comes off as that maybe this person is not really fully aware of what's going on around them. So that's key. The next one, continue, be honest. In an interview, if you don't know something, be honest if you don't know it. This comes up a lot in our technical interviews. Someone will come in and say, hey, do you know this particular technology? And then someone will try to dance around it and give this kind of, managers hate that. No one likes that kind of person. What we rather have you say is, I don't know that particular thing, but I'm happy to learn it. I'm a curious individual. I'm a curious person. I'm happy to learn it. That goes a long way than someone trying to dance around it and pretend. Because remember, the person on the other side knows that. So they're asking you that question. So it's something simple as, do you know Excel, to, hey, do you know Java? You want to be, if you know it, you say, I know it. If you don't know it that well, say, listen, I played with it a little bit. I learned a little bit, but I don't know it expertly. But to go and say, yeah, I know it, and then they ask you some questions within it and you can't answer it, then it comes off as, you were being dishonest. So be always honest in an interview and let the chips fall where they may in terms of their decision on where they should move forward with you or not. The next thing that's very important in an interview is storytelling. So if someone asks you a question, tell me about yourself, and you say, I'm hardworking and I'm honest and I'm curious, that's great, but it's not telling me much. What I want to hear more is, you can say you're hardworking, but tell me in a story. So, I did this thing in the project. I worked here. In my last job, I did this. In high school, I did this. I volunteered with the Robotics Youth Organization. These are the things that I've accomplished. That within saying that, you're incorporating the things that you've done in curiosity and hard work, and all the different good qualities that you have. But it's in a storytelling format. We remember candidates, then there's a story attached to it. If a candidate comes and meets with me and they tell me this, that, the other, and I don't remember them, then why would I choose them over the other candidates? Remember, every job for the most part, or every college is looking at multiple applicants. What's going to make you differentiate? What's going to separate you? So it was years ago, I was doing this thing at NYU Polytechnic, where we had a candidate come in and he was a grad student in comp sci, and he was doing this whole presentation about why he was good for the job. Then I asked him simply, why do you want to be a programmer? Why do you want to be a software engineer? And he told the story. After he told the story of why he wanted to do that, I remembered him. So I told him, remember, at the end of the day, good, effective communicators and good, effective interviews are usually in a situation where you're doing some storytelling. So whatever you're going to present to that person about yourself, like I said, whether it's for the college, the summer internship, the job, try to put it in a story format. You can show you're hardworking, you can show you're smart, you can show you're inquisitive, but do it in a story format so they can remember who you are. And that goes to the next point, which is like having a conversation. When you can get to that level, you can see that the interview almost is like a conversation. Now, not all interviews are going to be like that. So I'm going to forewarn everyone that. But ideally, as you do more and more of these interviews, you're going to see some interviews, it's just having a conversation. And when the other side is not interrogating you, but more just asking you questions and you're going back and forth, it's like a good conversation, you can get the feeling that their interview is going well. Because again, it's like two people having a two-way communication. So try to get to the point where you're getting it to that, where it's a conversation. And one of the key things to that is being inquisitive. And there's going to be some subsequent slides talking about questions, but you want to be inquisitive. You want to be someone that shows that they're curious, that they want to learn. So this is going to be something I'll tackle a little bit more in a couple of slides. But throughout the interview process, being inquisitive is key. As you get towards the end of the interview, you want to make sure you're thankful. This person invested time, they invited you in or set up a Zoom session with you. You want to be thankful. Hey, it was great meeting you. Thank you for making the time. Look forward to hearing back. So be thankful and then close with a positive impression. Say, look, I look forward to hearing from you. I'm very interested. And if you want to reach me, you can shoot me an email or give me or leave me a message. Close with a positive impression. And now I know in today's COVID world, we're not doing a lot of handshaking, but back in the day, if you did handshaking, the handshake should be firm. But if you're not doing the handshaking, again, what hasn't been replaced is the smile. It doesn't matter if you're doing virtually or you're doing on sites where you're actually seeing the person. You want to make sure that you're smiling. And if you're doing it on the phone, the same thing. Close with a positive impression. I'm very interested. This sounds like something that I think I could excel at. I'd love to hear back. And then you leave it like that. So close with a very positive impression when you end. Now, going to sample questions. These are some of the sample questions that you're going to get. These are general ones, which we'll cover like for the lion's share. So for example, this one, tell us about yourself. This is the open-ended storytelling question. So want to make sure you practice that. Now, I know that down the road, we're going to do some mock interviews with everyone here with smaller groups, either groups of 1 and 2. So we'll practice these things so you're really good at it. But tell us about yourself is one that comes up all the time, even now. Whether I'm at Amazon or interviewed other companies, it's always the same question. So Murshed, I've seen your background, I've seen your LinkedIn profile, I've seen your resume. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself? And this is your 1 to 2 to 3 minute information about who you are, what you're interested in. So now many of you might tell me, well, I'm in high school. What am I going to say about myself? You have a lot to say. I'm in high school. Yeah, I'm involved in, let's say, robotics for you. I'm involved in sports. You have these kind of hobbies and interests. Talk about those things. Again, what you're doing is painting a picture of yourself to this particular person who's meeting with you. And at the end of the day, differentiating yourself. My hobbies are this. These are the things that I'm passionate about. These are the things I'm interested in. I'm artistic. I'm creative. I'm, technical. I love building things. I'm into music. Whatever it is, you're telling the person a story about this stuff. Again, it's storytelling. You're creating a picture. And in that storytelling, sometimes a lot of connections are made. I mean, I've had people tell in interviews certain things about, oh, they're into music and they played in a band and all of a sudden the interviewer did as well. And then they talk about that for a few minutes. Or someone's like, I'm really into sports. I play soccer. The person says, well, I played soccer too. And then they talk about that. Again, what is it doing? It's building relationship and rapport. But at the same time, you're now becoming differentiated from someone else that might interview for the same role that's coming in next. So we'll practice that, but make sure you start to understand, how do I tell my story in 3-4 minutes? How do I tell the story about who I am? Next thing is they can ask, what do you know about our organization or about our university? And this happens often. And I've interviewed people from my own company when I ran my own agency in New York, and I would ask them, what do you know about our organization? The candidates that came in and said, I went to your website, did some research. This is what I know. You've been around for this long. She tells me that this person's interested, that there's someone who knows how to research. They're clear about where they want to be for their next role, as opposed to someone who says, oh, I don't know, I didn't even check. So you're interviewing for an organization that you don't know anything about. And it also goes for even large organizations. Just because someone says, oh, I'm interviewing with Amazon, if they ask you, so Amazon or Microsoft or even Google, so what do you know about Google? Well, you're a search engine, and that's not good enough. Like, you want to go and be able to talk about the organization. The organization was founded in 1999. You had 2 founders out of Stanford, in the garage. This shows you've done research, because that's what's going to tell this particular person who's interviewing you that this is someone who's serious and someone who is at the same time inquisitive and wants to learn, and they've done their homework, and that's key. Another question that comes up a lot is, why are you interested in working or being here? So yeah, we're a great company and we're doing this, or this is a great university, but why are you, what makes you interested in us? What brought you here? And again, it goes back to the research, the job description, what it is about the thing. Something made you interested about this particular university or school. Something made you particularly interested about this job or about this organization. Tell them those things and back it up with some of the detailed information that you've done through the research. They can also ask things like, why do you think you're the right fit? Like, why you? Why not someone else? And then you want to play to your strengths here. You want to talk about, hey, these are the things that make me who I am. These are my strengths, and this is why I think I'd be a good addition to the organization. And then the research helps a lot. I noticed that in the job description, you mentioned that you want someone who's hardworking or organized or inquisitive. I'm those kind of things. And again, storytelling. Tell them where you've done things like, I was inquisitive about this. I was hardworking in this situation. These are the things that I did there. That shows them you're a right fit, and it also provides some details that they can know who you are. And then this is always a tough one that comes up. Like, what are the challenges about you? What are some of your shortcomings? What are some of your weaknesses that we should know about? And this is one of those tricky questions where you don't want to go and say something like, well, my problem is that I'm always late, or, I'm not very serious, or I'm not a person who can commit. If you do that, interview's over. What they're looking for here is that everyone has some challenges, but how do you overcome the challenges? So the way to best answer that is like, hey, some of my things are that I love to work in a team environment, and sometimes the challenge that I have is, I always need to collaborate with others, and so I'm on my own. Sometimes I have some challenges, so I need to make sure that I sit down and really understand it, and then I can go into my own zone and work hard, and then go back and collaborate with the team. So you're saying that's something that you have a challenge, but you're still spinning it as something that's positive, right? Or in the example, like, I'm very, very interested in working on this particular tool or whatever. But sometimes what I do is, I'm a little bit more eager, and I might jump ahead too much and do research and not, take into consideration that I need to learn the foundations first. I'm over anxious, so sometimes I just jump ahead too quickly, but then I need to be grounded. So this is an example of someone who is eager, they jump quickly, but at the same time, it's because they're curious and stuff like that. So again, it's not a terrible thing, but at the same time, you're being honest and saying, sometimes I'm a little impatient, I like to learn too quickly or jump ahead, but sometimes I just need to ground myself, slow down a little bit. These are all honest ways of trying to answer those tough questions, as opposed to saying, like I said originally, which is, hey, and I've had people say these things to me, I'm just late a lot, or I can't get up, and things like that. And this has come, and it's shocking to me. And if you do those kind of answers, you're not going to get the job or the opportunity. So questions, when I mean by questions here, I mean questions from you. Now, there's a very famous quote by the philosopher Voltaire that says, you judge a person by their questions rather than their answers. And this is key. Every interview you go to, I don't care if it's for a college interview, a summer internship, a regular job interview, whatever it is, you want to make sure you prepare to have at least 2 to 3 really good questions. What that shows is that you've done your preparation, that you have interest in where you're going, and then you also have some enthusiasm about this job or this particular university or organization. So have some really good questions. Do some research. Here are some examples that I provided, right? Can you tell me about what you do here? What are some of the things that you like about working here? Why this is a really good question is, there's nothing on earth people like more than anything else is than talking about themselves. So you ask someone, what is it that you like about working here? Or tell me about what makes you interested about this organization. And then they go on and on. And as they're speaking and as they're saying these things, try to use it to your advantage. Find the connecting pieces. What I love about this job or this particular organization is that, we do a lot of flexible time for volunteer work. Great, I volunteer as well. Oh, really? And then all of a sudden you were talking about that. Or, one of the things I really like about this place is that this gives you a lot of chance to learn. We invest a lot in training and technology. Really, this is something that I love. And then you chime in, and now you're building rapport. Now you're building a connection. So this is a really good question to ask. So again, these are just some questions, but you want to make sure you have 3 really good questions. And the questions really come, in addition to these questions, the other really good questions come from your research. What are your expectations of new employees? This is a really good, what are your expectations of someone joining this organization or coming to this university? What this question is trying to elicit, or what you're trying to get out of there, it shows that you're ready. That what are your expectations? Almost as if like, picture me there. Like, hey, what do you expect me to do? And number 2, it gives you an idea of how they measure success. So they'll say things like, what we expect is in 3 months the person will be here, or 90 days we expect this, or in a couple of weeks you'll be in training, and after that these are our expectations. Now you're getting a good blueprint or a good idea of what this place is going to be. Now remember, every interview, whether it's for college, internship, job, they're interviewing you. You are also interviewing them. Don't forget that. There's a lot of opportunities out there. There might be 5 or 6 different opportunities, 5 or 6 different universities they're looking at. It doesn't mean that they're just asking you. You're asking questions because you want to make sure that where you're going to invest your time, whether it's for school, whether it's for work, whether it's you're going to give up your time somewhere, you want to make sure it's somewhere you're going to learn, somewhere you're going to be happy, somewhere you're going to be able to at least build your resume and build your profile and your brand. So you want to make sure you ask those questions. You're interviewing them and they're also interviewing you. So how giving an idea of like, hey, what are your expectations gives you a really good idea of where they're going to be coming from and how they measure success. Now the interview is over, you get back, effective follow. I can't tell you how many times people don't do this, right? After the interview is over, if it's a college interview or a job interview and it's something you're really interested in, I always send a thank you email or note. It's very simple. Like you can literally go on the internet and get them, called thank you emails or thank you notes. They usually have cookie cutter ones that you can just copy and print. What I would strongly suggest is the intro is pretty standard, the conclusion is standard, but the middle paragraph, and again, these are short 3 paragraphs. The middle paragraph should be something specific that you spoke to this interviewer about. So the beginning will say something like, thanks for inviting me in, really enjoyed talking about the role. The conclusion will say, we look forward to hearing back. But that middle paragraph should be something about, I really enjoyed talking to you about blah. What you're doing with mobile, or what you're doing with Java, or what you're doing in this space, or here's the security things we spoke about. Because then that thank you letter looks different than someone that just copy and pasted it off the internet. So again, the standard first paragraph, the standard third paragraph, but that middle paragraph should be something specific that you spoke to that particular interview about. Make a follow-up call. If you know, like after the interview is done, if you a day or so goes by or 2 days will go by, you haven't heard anything, just follow up. Say, hey, listen, reach out to that person. If they pick up the phone, say, listen, we met the other day. I'm really interested in this role or opportunity or this organization. Just wanted to let you know that I'm looking forward to hearing back. If you don't get them, leave a message. Because remember, a lot of people are doing these things. More people should than don't. The people who are doing it are the ones that are going to get the callbacks, because that shows a prospective employer or college or university or job that, hey, this person is not only interested, not only did they interview, but they're effectively following up. Imagine what type of employee, what type of student, what type of person this is going to be, that they're not going to let anything slip past them. And I would make sure that you check in within 48 to 72 hours. Because remember, at the end of the day, the people who want something most are the ones who are going to get it. So if someone's going to go interview and go to 5, 10 interviews and do no effective follow-up, no thank you emails, could they still get the job? Yeah. But the person that follows up, the person that shows interest, like it could be that someone was a number 1 candidate and this other person was a number 2 candidate, because they showed so much more interest. All of a sudden things changed. This person sent a thank you note, then they followed up with a call or left a message, and they checked in within 72 hours. I think this person really wants to be here. And that changes a lot of things. So you want to make sure that you do really effective follow-up. This is a game of numbers at the end of the day. So one of the things that always happens is people will pick the university of their choice or the job of their choice or the internship of their choice, and they'll go and they're like, I hate this interview thing. I did it. I'm done. I don't want to do anymore. And that's it. That's not how you're going to get good at this. You're going to have to do this the rest of your life, right? So this won't be the only job, won't be the only college, won't be the only opportunity. The only way you get really good at this is you keep applying and keep interviewing. And then you make sure that the laws of averages are in your favor. The more places you apply to, the more places you keep interviewing with, the more opportunities you get and more practice you get. And then the more offers you get. It's great to be in a situation where like, there are 3 universities that want me, or there are 3 jobs that want me. That's a great situation to be in, because you went, as opposed to I applied to this one place and you waited and all of a sudden it didn't work out and now you have to start all over. So again, more interviews builds more comfortability, which builds more confidence. You go on 5, 10, 15 interviews, you start seeing the same pattern of questions, you start seeing how the interview works, you feel comfortable, you get better and better. So again, the more you apply, the more you interview, the better you'll be. Gain a better understanding of the market. You'll understand what's going on, what are the right things to say, what's trending. You're going to see, oh, this is how most of the companies in the software space are. This is how startups are. This is how big companies are. You'll be able to better understand what's going on in the market. And then also, it helps you learn from previous mistakes. The old adage goes, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You go out to an interview. They give you a really tough question. You feel like you bombed that question. That happens. It's going to happen in your career. But are you ever going to make sure that if that question comes again, you nail it the next time? So you get a tough question, you come home, you write it, you research it, go on the internet, it's all there. You can even have chat rooms where you can ask these questions. This is the question that you came across, but you make sure you never make a mistake on that question again. So, like I said, you learn from previous mistakes, you get better and better till you're a fine tuned interviewing machine. And then also the important thing on going on multiple interviews is that you're making multiple contacts, right? Let's say you go for an interview to four, five, six places, and then you like three places. And all of a sudden you choose one place, and for some reason it didn't work out, or for some reason, you decide that you don't want to go there. Well, then you have that backup place. Why? Because you met multiple people. Maybe you start a place or go somewhere and you're really not happy there. Then you call back that old person and say, hey, listen, is that job still open? Because it's not working out here. There's always that. Why? Because you made that connection. Make sure you keep a log of every interview you go on, whether it's in college or job or internship. Try to keep a log of who you met with. Those contacts are going to be critical, especially as you get older. And as we keep build that LinkedIn profile, everyone's on LinkedIn. You will then know these people, hopefully make a connection with them. And those kind of people will be a good connection for you later. There'll be a whole session and seminar that I'm going to do on networking and how to build robust networks and how to be really good at that, because that whole thing that they say it's all about who you know is really, really true. So we'll cover that in one of the future sessions. Moving on to the next thing, conclusion. Apply often, interview often, as I covered. There's so much competition out there. You want to make sure that you don't just hang in on one job or one opportunity or one university. Try to make sure that you're practicing and getting your things out to as many places as possible. Research and prepare. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. So much information is available nowadays. So the excuse that, well, I don't know anything, or I didn't check, or I don't know, it's not going to fly. We have phones, smartphones, we have the website, we have information, company website. There's all kind of tools at your disposal. You want to make sure you research and prepare, have your questions, everything. Ask really good questions. So you want to make sure you ask questions. Know before you go, like, is this the right place for you? Is this the right university for you? Is this the right internship for you? Is this going to get you to where you want to go? Is this the right first job for you? All of these things are going to be figured out if you ask the right questions. If you start a job and all of a sudden you realize it was not the right fit, and you didn't ask the right questions, then it's on you, right? So you want to make sure you ask all the questions and know what you're getting into. Be confident. We talked about this. You don't want to be arrogant. And then the fine line between the two, like I said, it's being humble. It's saying that your strengths are here, but these are some of the challenges. And you're, someone that can work through these things, as opposed to, I know this, I did this. This is all me. This comes off as arrogant. Again, people will not hire someone who's arrogant. Again, learn from your mistakes. We talked about this, right? You want to make sure you're doing this over and over, and then you're getting better and better. That's always what it is. And finally, I want to just stick with, don't worry. There's a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of schools out there, a lot of internships out there. Just because something didn't work out, it may mean that it might not have been the best thing for you, right? So don't sit there and saying, if this didn't happen, then that's it. I've had people interview at AWS. I've had people interview at Capital One. I've had people interview at various companies. And they're like, oh, I didn't get the job, then I must be terrible. Not the case. Maybe it was just not the right time. Maybe it was not the right person that you met with. Maybe it wasn't the right role, right? And then the same person will apply 3 months later to the same company with a different person, and all of a sudden it's a match. So don't worry about it. Don't overstress the fact that, hey, I didn't get this particular job. That's why you want to make sure you do a lot of different things, go out to a lot of different opportunities. So if your number one doesn't work out, maybe your two and three work out. If your number one works out, great. So that's my whole thing. Like, don't worry too much. There's a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of choices for you out there. You're early in your career. Most of you are in high school. I think some of you are in college. Don't overstress the stuff. You will get to where you need to get to, and you will get to there as you get more and more confident, as you get more and more skills. And hopefully with some of these coaching, you'll be a lot more comfortable going into it, but don't overstress out on this. So I'll conclude here and then really open up the floor for Q&A, because I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Like I said, this is something that I do for a career. And I've done it for college students. I've done it for grad students. Of course, I do it for the professionals. But I think it's been a while since I've talked to high school kids and undergrads. So curious to hear from anyone. If you have any questions, I'm open, and I'm going to share these slides. Saji will get these slides over to you all. And so feel free to, go through this stuff as well. So any questions?
I think I had a question about
What's your
the.
name?
Oh, my name is Ishan.
Hey, son, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So what's your question?
So I had a question about following up. You said check up 48 to 72 hours. In addition to sending an email immediately after the interview, do you what would you suggest this follow up email a couple of days after the interview would contain?
Can you repeat the last part again? I didn't hear the last part.
So for the check-in 2 to 3 days after, what would that
Right.
email contain?
You're saying you did do the check-in or you didn't do the check-in after 72 hours?
No, 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 like in the email that you send as the check-in, what would you put in it?
Oh yeah, yeah. So no, for the email or note that you send, you just want to send something as simple as like, hey, like I said, there's a million of these thank you letters online. You just grab that, it's 3 paragraphs, keep it simple. Just the middle thing should be something in like right then and there that talks about what you guys talked about. I really enjoyed talking to you about mobile devices or machine learning or whatever that was personal to your interview. The check-in is something that you can do in via email. Like for example, let's say you sent it out. That's one messaging that went out. Then if you don't hear anything in 48 to 72 hours, you send another follow-up email. And you can say something like, "Hey, just following up on this communication. Really interested in the role or the opportunity or the university. Would love to hear back from you on that." And that's it. So I always say that you do that up to 3 times, right? You send a thank you letter or a message, or you send an email to get that out there. Then there's a follow up email, and then I would wait another like say 4 or 5 days and send the last one. You after 3 message inquiries, I think that's fine. Like you don't want to be that person that comes off as desperate where you're calling like every 5 hours or checking all the time. You don't want to be that person. So thank you email, check in again 72 hours later, and then I would wait another 3 or 4 days, check in again, and then leave it up to them because a lot of times people want to get back to you, they just may not be able to get back to you because of all that's going on. But I think at the most you want to have 3 follow-ups effectively over a period of like a week and a half. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions from the folks? I hope you guys have questions because I know that when I was in high school, I had someone come in, and this was a long time ago. So someone came in and did one of these things. And for me, when I went for my first college interview and my first job interview, it helped a lot. So, like I said, don't be shy, just ask the questions.
I have a question.
What's your name?
Neha.
Yeah. Hi, Neha.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I was wondering if it's a good idea on virtual interviews to like have some sort of notes on the side, or do you think that would be like a distraction during the interview?
That's an excellent question. So this actually comes up in our AWS and when we did it at Capital One. Having notes on the side, having a notebook, a legal pad, or notebook on the side, that's quite all right. Because sometimes they'll ask you a question and you'll have to write it down, right? We're okay with that kind of stuff. What you don't want to have is a laptop open, right? So it looks like you're looking for answers. So if someone asks you a question and you're like, "Hey, that's a really good question, I'm just writing it down," and or you put some notes on the pad on the side next to you on the virtual interview, that's quite all right. But if you have a laptop open and you're taking notes on the laptop, it looks like you have search of answers. So really good question. Make sure that having a notepad or a notebook or like as a legal pad, that's fine to make some notes. That comes off as fine. Just don't have the laptop open.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions. Come on, let's keep them coming. Anybody have other questions? Because I know that we're going to do some of these mock interviews with you guys and girls, and we're going to get this stuff really down so that this won't be an issue. And then we'll build these confidence around communication. But while I'm here, what are the questions that you guys all have? Here's the slide on questions. So great questions.
Yeah, so I guess I had a kind of interesting question from my perspective. So,
Can you say what your name is? I'd like to know who they are.
oh yeah, sorry, my name is Rishab.
Hey, Vishal.
Yeah. So after I got my job, one of the things I talked to my employer about, because right now, like since I've been working there for like 2 years, we're pretty good friends at this point, and he told me that one of the things that a lot of employers look for is that, again, you mentioned it as well, is like the lack of arrogance. But like also part of that he said was, I guess my question is like, there's no such thing as being too prepared in terms of information, but how do you manage like being really prepared with like questions and whatnot, with like sounding natural during an interview. So I know it's more of a problem during like career fairs and whatnot, but a lot of kids, they come in with like pre-rehearsed answers to a lot of these questions, and that also has its like negative implications as well.
This is a really good one. So I'll tell you this in what happened. So like I said, I was I was doing another mock interview at another university, and one time a candidate came in and I asked him, so why do you want to, do what it is that you want to do? And he actually memorized the entire answer. So I let him run that for about 3-4 minutes. Literally sounds like a robot, like rehearsed, memorized. And then I stopped him and I said, why do you want to do this? Like, what is the inspiration behind it? And he said, well, my dad was the inspiration behind it. And he went through this entire story about why he was inspired to do that. And I said, you know what? This is awesome. Now I'm actually invested and interested and engaged. Why did you do the whole like memorized rehearsed thing? He goes, I have an accent. I come from China. I came new to this country and I have a very thick accent. And so I was afraid that if I didn't memorize it, it wouldn't be clear. I said, some of the most effective speakers on earth have an accent. It's not about accents. It's about rapport. The ability to, when you story told and you told me that, hey, your inspiration was your dad and this is why you went into this field, I was invested as an interviewer and I was connected with you. So this is the key. So storytelling is huge in terms of that. So going back to your point, like you want to be able to explain, you don't want to sound rehearsed. And the way you do that is, yes, in the back of your mind, you have these answers that of some of the prepared questions you have, but then how do you connect it to your story? What makes it distinct to you? And no one else can be that person. It's only you. Only you've had that journey. So when you can tell it in that way, it doesn't sound as rehearsed and stuff like that. And then just be comfortable. Like, again, everyone's nervous when they're on an interview. It's okay. Even we when we're interviewing other people, we expect that the person probably is interviewing on the other side. So we try to make them feel comfortable. Say, hey, how are you? What's going on? Have some chit chat at the beginning. Let people relax. And then people start to go. So most interviewers and most places will do that. So again, personalizing it, making sure that you put your own story and your own journey into it. And then of course, knowing those answers and just practice. Practice makes everything easier and easier. So you go on 5 interviews or 10 interviews, shocking. The data says that people who interview more often are better at it than the people who don't do it that often. So it's like anything else. Like, so these are some of the things we want to work on, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
These are all great questions. Come on, folks. There's got to be more. Again,
Hi, I have a question.
please
Sorry
introduce.
for cutting you off.
No problem. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I had a question about
What's
the
your name? I said, please introduce.
oh, sorry, I didn't hear that. Cut off a little. My name's Ria.
Hi, Ria, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So what's your question?
So this is kind of about the common question interviewers like to ask at the end of interviews, and it's what questions do you have for us? So I wanted to know, what is a smart way to answer that question if you don't feel that you have any questions, or even if you do, whether or not you should ask them?
Wait, so if they ask you what questions you have for us, so like I said during the presentation, you want to make sure that you have to have questions, right? The last thing I want to see, like anytime someone comes in and they're like, hey, what questions do you have for us? And the person says, I don't have any questions. To me, what it shows that the person hasn't done research, not interested. It may not be the case, but that's how it comes off as. So you want to make sure that you have 2 to 3 well-prepared questions. And the reason I say have more than, you might have time to ask 1, you may have time to ask up to 3. But the reason you want to have a few extra questions is because sometimes your questions will be answered in the interview. So for example, let's just say the question was, what are the hours? But maybe during the interview, the person says, well, we need the person here and they have to be here from this day and from this hour to this hour. Well, you can't ask that question anymore because they already told you that. You want to make sure that you do research and have some really good questions. So going back to your question, you have to have some questions. It's a prerequisite. It's what interviewers look for. So if someone comes up and says, I don't have any question, then the idea that comes up is, so you're about to take this job or go into this university or take this undertaking, and you don't have any questions about what you're about to encounter, you want to make sure you have those questions. So my strong suggestion on that question is have really good questions. And then as you go on to interviews and you see the questions that come from other interviewers, start collecting those questions and you can start asking them as well. But yes, you need to have questions.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for that, Ria. Next, anybody else have any other questions? Whether it's about interview prep, questions, follow up, happy to answer any of these questions.
Hi, this is Sid. So I just had a quick question on like, do you have any like tips on what not to say when you're at an interview?
That's a really good question. So thanks for sharing that. What not to say at an interview. You don't want to say, like I said, we talked a little bit about shortcomings and negatives. You don't want to paint a picture of yourself on anything. Let's say there's some challenges you have with certain things, right? Where you think it can be a no-go for a job. You don't want to come off with that. Oh, you know, my real weakness is that I'm not someone who pays attention, or I have a hard time focusing. Those are some things that are not going to bode well at an interview, right? You want to make sure you avoid that as much as possible. So you want to spin those kind of things. So those are things. Other things you don't want to do is you don't want to ask like things like first interview, so how much does this job pay? Or what's in it for me? Like that doesn't also reflect well. So as you get older and you get to these opportunities, money is going to come up all the time into it. This is always a really tense or very like tough topic to discuss. But usually they're discussed towards the end. And if you ask any of your parents, they've all been asked this question for any job that they've been at. But when do you bring it up? So if someone comes in and the first thing they're like, okay, so you know, how much does the job pay, and what are the hours, and you know, when's the off days? These are some questions that just not going to bode well for your prospective employer. For colleges, I'm not sure what those would be in terms of that, other than like saying stuff about I can't think of it for what it would be for college, but from an employer perspective, the money issue is a big one. Vacation from the first question, when's time off? You know, what are the hours? Again, if you're doing a summer internship, that's fine. But like if you're a professional going for a job and saying, so what are the hours? Like everyone knows the standard hour is 40 hours, but then why are you asking that? So these are some of the questions you want to avoid. And if you look on the internet, there's a whole section of more of these kind of questions that you can possibly find. So that's a really good question. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Got it.
This is Ishan again, and I have a question about about answering the "What are your weaknesses?" question.
Yeah.
So would it be okay to sort of like say something that's both a strength and a weakness? Like for example, maybe saying that you're a perfectionist, which means that you have a very high attention to detail, but then it causes you to waste a lot of time. Would that be okay to say something as an answer to what are your weaknesses?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I would just make sure you qualify a little bit more. Like that comes up sometime. You know, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Or you know, sometimes I'm a little bit more detail. I'm a very detail oriented person. So sometimes I get stuck with a little bit of paralysis analysis. That's all good. But you want to avoid something that's like cliche. So back in the day, when people would say like, oh, what is your biggest weakness? My biggest weakness is that I work too hard. Like these kind of responses are just so like third grade, nobody likes it. And so I remember one of my friends went to Columbia University and it was the college interview, and he asked him, what are your shortcomings and weaknesses? He goes, my shortcoming is once I start something, I have to finish. He's like, that's a cute answer, but this is Columbia. Come on, you gotta have a better answer than that. So going to what you said, like, yeah, being a perfectionist sometimes can be something, but you're always trying to get that done. Or I'm someone who's real detail oriented, and sometimes that might slow me down, and want to make sure that, you know, I'm taking the big picture. Saying it like that is good. So what you said is good. Just make sure you put a little bit of information and explain it, right? So that's the storytelling part I mentioned. Explain what that means. That's specifically to you, Zishan, as opposed to like what, let's say 3 other candidates said that. Why do we remember you? And so you want to provide some sort of example in that case. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Great questions. I'm telling you, this is really all good questions. And I guess I'm looking forward to the mock interviews with everyone, because then we get to really practice on how you guys handle this. But any other questions I can answer at this point? Okay, if there are not any other questions, I'm going to share my email with the group. So you guys can always reach out. If you say, hey, I had some questions I forgot, or I wanted to shoot you an email, feel free to do so. I'm always available. I'm going to make sure you guys are all, and girls are all prepared, especially if you guys have an interview coming up somewhere, anywhere, then reach out. Want to make sure that if you need a practice session, we can do it. But other than that, I'm definitely going to see a lot of you in the mock interviews. So if there are no other questions, thank you all for making the time, and I hope this was helpful. We'll share all the slides with you. Saj, anything else to add, or anybody else have anything to add from the adult side?
Sorry, hi, this is Akanksha, and I just had one last question.
Hi, Ansha, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
So I just had a question about the mock interviews. Like, how are we supposed to like research or prepare for those?
Yeah, so I'm going to share these slides with you, and I'm going to come up with some questions that I'm going to send out to the group, and then I'll share that with you. So so you're not just coming in blind. We're going to have you guys or girls receive some of this information ahead of time, and then we'll practice it that way. But something that's going to come up, like for sure, is going to be like, tell me about yourself. And then what I'm going to look for is, are people storytelling? I'm going to give some guidance. So it's not just like, okay, what are we doing here? So we'll provide some of that information ahead of time. Then the rest will be up to you all to do a little bit of preparation. Nothing crazy, just to get the practice going so that when you are in a real live interview session, this thing becomes easier and easier for you.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.